Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips. This is your weekly fishing report. Here, Panther Point, Panther Lake, Swan Lake, all this area up in here. Again, our fish haven't quite made that transition over to the sand yet. Sand and shell, grass. It's still hanging over a little bit of mud and grass, scattered shell. That's primarily still where our redfish are being caught. That's where a lot of the bait is being seen. Find these little cove areas like inside of Panther Lake there, and you'll find one area of it where you've got a very concentrated amount of bait close by. Your fish are going to be somewhere in that area. One thing that I've noticed with this is that the little bit smaller baits are being the most productive right now. So your soft dines, your mirror dines, harder bait that are suspending, the smaller version like the burner shad for down south lures, the regular version of the down south lures, the jerk shrimps from marker 54, all those have been the most productive down here for redfish. Specifically white, magic grass, chicken of the sea have been the three productive bait color wise. Now just continue to work down this area here. One thing to be aware of, that with the amount of rain that we've had, weather's still kind of all over the place, so just make sure you take that into consideration when you make these trips this far down into San Antonio Bay Area. It's a long way away from some type of safe structure if you happen to get caught into a storm. But continue to work down here into Cedar Lake as well. There's been some nice bunch of redfish in here working this area. Again, the same baits as mentioned before. This continues to be a productive area here. Also, when you're if you've noticed a bunch of tea-stained water, that's just the freshwater runoff coming into the salt water. That's what it does. It turns that a little bit brackish. So in some cases, if you've got some current that's flowing through that particular area and you've got that brackish water that's showing itself, redfish like this, especially if you got bait that's working in there. So they thrive in that type of water. So that's something that to be aware of and to target in that particular area. All over here in the Paul's Mott area, all back in Fence Lake, these areas all back in here. With all the extra water we've had being pushed in here from that tropical storm that was out in the Gulf that's disintegrated by now, all this tons of water is being pushed back in all these areas here, so it opens it all up for you. So if you got a fairly skinny running boat, you can get back into these areas. There's a bunch of these lake areas that will open up for you. Nice little drop-off areas around the little islands that are all back in a fence, this back shoreline here. All back in this area here. There's a good amount of bait that's working here. You just take your time, push your boat up against one of the little islands, jump out, and start wading it. You got a great bottom that's back in a good grass that's been developed back in here, starting to come back really good. I know there's been a lot of black drum that's being caught back in this area. If that's your fish of choice that you like those, the little johns, we'll work on those. The real small jerk shrimp that marker 54 makes, and there's a couple of others that are out on the market as well that are a little bit smaller, have worked pretty good. Now that's my primary target back in these areas is the redfish, and we have caught a few that are scattered back in this area, just wading, working the shorelines, finding the bait. Again, what you want to do back in this area as well is rig them up weedless. Found that the 1/8 ounce 4/0 work really well with the down south lures. They fit in there really nice into that slot, and you can really work those baits down inside that grass close to the shoreline and not have to worry about getting caught up in it. Now continue to work your soft dines in here as well. You may have to work those a little bit more aggressively to keep it out of the grass. In some of the areas you got a lot of floating grass with the amount of water that's been pushed into here. Just continue to work all these areas back in here and just go as far as what your boat will allow you to do. Just make sure that you pay attention to your tides. Even with the higher tides, the water will continue to drop out on you if you're not paying attention to it. So allow yourself a way to get out if you're back in here with your boat. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to your minors and majors that will actually help stack those things in good favor towards you. Again, the bait selection. We're coming up on a full moon, so that's going to be something to take in consideration to maybe downsize your bait profiles to a little bit smaller size. The burner shads, the regular size version of the down south work well. All back here, turtle pen area, back shoreline, all the little cove back in here. You got the back lakes that jump off into here. You got the area on this back shoreline that runs into here. You got a little deep little gut that runs in there toward Copano Creek. There's a little back lake that's back in here. Redfish have been in this area Decent amount of bait work in here. Grass starting to come back in this area. One thing that you must be aware of, again, with the amount of rain that we've had the last couple of weeks, last few days, all the creeks, all the runoffs starting to run back into these areas, so that brackish water is starting to really show up, the real tea-stained water, which you'll know it instantly because you'll see it looks like the water's just like super dirty from going to that green, trout green water into that brown. So that water, a lot of fresh water will be on top, but your salt water's heavier, so it'll be on the bottom. So what you'd want to do in that particular instance, and again with all the extra water we've had pushed up in here, you can head back in here to Copano Creek, back to that mouth. Same thing up in Mission. You can do the same thing over in Mission Bay and the Mission Creek that runs all the way back up into that area where it dumps out up in the top side of Mission. You'll have that brackish water up there as well. Find you an area where that flow is either coming around the corner, coming out through the mouth. You got a current that's pushing either out or in. Find some bait worked in it there. You'll find redfish that'll be schooled up around that. They really like that kind of stuff. Your soft dines will work in this area, will be good. Shrimp, your jerk shrimp will be good in this area. Also throw your down south rigged up weedless just to help you out with some shell that's scattered in the area, plus the grass. And then the mirrodines have been good. And also a double D. You can throw the double D through this area where you can rip that thing down and let it suspend just a little bit in that current. And you're getting a nice reactionary strike from these redfish. They're all up in these areas here. So just continue to work shorelines. Continue to all work back in here. Be aware of all that. Again, pay attention to your tides. Even though we've had a lot of water pushed in here, it still can drop out and put you in a little bit of jeopardy if you're not paying attention to it, because these areas are pretty shallow normally. But with the extra water, you're able to get your boats back into these areas here. So pay attention to that. Again, work a major and minor into your day, and you'll set yourself up for a productive day. For watching, I'm Captain Larry Bell.